right, boys. I'm fired up for these games. It's a monstrous slate house. I got to start with the game that, to me, is probably a Super Bowl preview. Not a given. A lot can happen between now and the month of February down in New Orleans. But Buffalo and Detroit are certainly two teams that can win the whole thing. Detroit had their emotional win. Defense beat up. Campbell aggressive. They find a way to beat Green Bay last week. Buffalo, Josh Allen couldn't have done any more, but they lost the game. Now, as far as who this game means more to, it's not even close if you're going to handicap it that way. This game means significantly more for Detroit than it does Buffalo. I know you can paint the picture, Buffalo, 1 seed, all that. That's going to be asking a lot for them over the final 4 weeks. Detroit having home field advantage, I think, is a must for them if they're going to go and get to the Super Bowl. Here's the line. Detroit is up to a 2.5-point favorite in this game. Concerns with Buffalo's defense. Concerns with Detroit's defense. Allen's played well against them. House, I'll start with you. Buff, Detroit, who you got?
I feel like this one is razor thin, and I have it in the same class, the same category as the Thursday night matchup against Green Bay, which was also an excellent football game with two of the greatest, strategic and sort of conception-wise, the schemes that both Matt LaFleur and Dan Campbell and their staffs show up with. Now, I don't think we have the same kind of matchup here because Sean McDermott is relentless. He makes the wrong decision when it's game-winning time. There's enough evidence out there. We watched it once again this most recent Sunday. So there's a couple areas where I feel like Detroit has an advantage. I do think they're going to be able to establish the run. I do think that, Buffalo up front, their defensive front seven can get pushed around a little bit by this Detroit offensive line. And I think special teams wise, we watch really the difference in that game against the Rams was the special teams mess up. What we've seen out of Detroit is a level of discipline and execution, especially when it's game-winning time. Dan Campbell is making the right call and also getting the results out of the right call. So another razor-thin kind of situation, but my inclination is to go ahead and lay it with Detroit.
Yeah, I think House is on the money with this. And look, you look at the Detroit Lions and just how they performed this year. I have them the number one ranked power ranked team in the NFL this year. And I actually make this line closer to 4 than 2.5. So I'm seeing a small edge on the Detroit Lions. And, last week was very concerning for the Bills. Look, we talk about Super Bowl contenders. Does anybody have a good defense? Because last week, the Rams just marched up and down the field doing whatever they wanted. And you look at the Rams, one of their biggest struggles all year was that they could not convert third downs. They were converting 25% of their third downs. Well, last week, they converted 11 out of 15 third downs. They have 457 total yards, 320 in the air, and 137 on the ground. And we know that this Lions team, even though the defense isn't very good, they have one of the best offensive lines in the league. They push you around, and they can play ball control. They can take the ball out of Josh Allen's hands, and they also can throw the ball. So I think this is actually going to be a higher scoring game. I mean, when I look at my model, I actually have this around 57. So yeah, it's crazy because you're seeing 54.5 in the market right now, and I think this line was 53 earlier this week. So it just feels like you can't make this total high enough. So 54 is key, 51 is also key, but I think they're going to fly over this total. So that's how I'll be playing this. I don't really want to play a side, even though I do show a small edge on the Detroit Lions. It's tough to go against Josh Allen the way he's playing on the MVP level. So I think you just, you buy the offenses in this game.
I think there will be a ton of points. I'm right there with you, Raheem. I hate the idea of backing a narrative in which Josh Allen loses consecutive games, which doesn't happen particularly often. It did happen earlier this year, though, might I add, with Baltimore and then again against the Houston Texans. I think it's happening this week. I think for a couple of different reasons. The sense of desperation for Detroit, the extra rest for Detroit, knowing now the defections they have on defense, another week to get a little bit more comfortable with that. And they have just been a powerhouse in that building. I'm going to lay the 2.5. I'm with you. I think there will be a ton of points in the game. I'm taking the Lions, who need it that much more than the Bills. They find a way to get it done. Now, Pittsburgh and Philly. The books, clearly, Raheem, are not believers in the Pittsburgh Steelers. And the reason I say that is look at this point spread, which seems out of whack. It seems too high. You have the narrative in Philadelphia surrounding Jalen Hurts and A.J. Brown and now Sirianni getting involved. And yet our friends at FanDuel and all the odds makers out there, they have no problem jacking that Eagles-Steelers line almost to the 6 range. We're seeing 5.5. And I expect the public is going to be all over a Mike Tomlin team as an underdog. Now, we know House loves the Steelers. We know he bets them as a dog every week. I will start with you, Mr. Market Man. Is this line where it should be, or are the books just not reading the Steelers properly?
I actually have it at 5 exactly. So it seems like the market has this very correct. And you look at the Steelers, one interesting thing about this team is that without George Pickens, that offense is not the same. And that's the scary thing about this game if you're backing the Pittsburgh Steelers. Now, when it comes to the Philadelphia Eagles, they have one of the best defenses in the league, but this pass offense is absolutely abysmal. And it's very tough to back this team winning by margin when they don't have a decent pass offense. And it's also tough to back this team winning by margin when you consider in the first quarters, in the first halves of games, they truly struggle to put up points. So if you're backing the Eagles here, I think you need to just kind of just wait for an in-game situation based on what we've seen all season long because they're starting off these games very slow. But, I mean, of course, we have the Cousin Sal special. We know about how the Steelers, they tend to start off games and they tend to lose these first halves. And if they can keep you around in the game long enough, they can find ways to steal it. So I don't necessarily like a side in this game. I think this is a low-scoring game. The total is 42, and if Pickens isn't playing, you're not getting that deep ball, and the Eagles' pass offense isn't rolling, and we know the Eagles have one of the highest run-pass splits in the NFL. I think you're seeing a lower-scoring game, and right now, as we're taping this, I'm in New York City right now. I just left Philadelphia. It's abysmal weather out here right now. And it's supposed to be abysmal weather for the weekend. So if it's raining, I think you see a low-scoring game. I make this total around 40, so I look to go under here.
I love that handicap dream, and it really supports the idea of getting on the Pittsburgh Steelers and grabbing all the points, because if you have a low total, then it's wonderful to have 5.5 points in your back pocket here. And I'll confess, as a known avowed Steeler backer, perhaps the most enthusiastic Steeler backer on the panel here, I'm completely blown away by this line. And I'm sitting and going through the resume for the Eagles and trying to find the best defense that this Eagles team has played. And I'm having a really hard time with it. Maybe it's the Ravens because the Ravens rush defense is so good. But seriously, look at who the Eagles have gone up against, especially on this 9-game win streak. You're not going to find any top 10 defenses there. And I believe that this Steelers defense is a different walk of life altogether. The defense now, with the health of Nick Herbig, the return of their backers, Alonzo Highsmith and Herbig are both back, and their pass rush has been capital D dominant. A 30% quick pressure rate, third straight game above the 30% threshold. You know who doesn't like pressure? Jalen Hurts. He hates it. He tries to get rid of the ball. He tries to move, and he's not very accurate under pressure. This defense is a radically different animal than anything that the Eagles have seen this season. Now, I have a ton of respect for the Eagles defense, and especially Pittsburgh missing George Pickens. It is concerning, but all of these points I think this defense is not being properly recognized. This Steelers defense. The other aspect to this game that we have to acknowledge, the Steelers are way better at special teams. They have the best kicker in football. The Eagles kicker can't make a 50-yarder. And if you're telling me that Mike Tomlin, who's won 4 straight games as a road dog, 9 of his last 11, the Steelers don't turn the football over, and they have the best kicker in football, and it's Mike Tomlin versus Nick Sirianni, okay, I'll take the points. I'm fine with that. It's just it's a Steelers play all the way for me.
I'm right there with you. I'm sick and tired of losing on the Steelers. That's number one. Tomlin is an underdog. The trends are absolutely outrageous. And you mentioned the weather, Raheem. I just did a little deep dive. 45, not a lot of wind, no precip. So not the extreme weather that we have today with all the rain in New York City and Philadelphia. And it's not going to be crazy, bone-chilling cold. I don't really care. To House's point, I think Philadelphia has beaten up on a lot of bad teams this year, and I just think this is a rock'em sock'em game. You want to tell me the Eagles win a close game? Easily can see it. I can't see the Steelers getting blown out here. I can't see them losing by multiple scores. I'm all over this. I don't know if they're winning the game outright. I'm definitely grabbing the points. I'm with Pittsburgh here. Absolutely. Done fading.
Speaking of grabbing the points, I bet you guys $100 that Bill Simmons, when he does his 4-team teaser, he is going to tease the Pittsburgh Steelers 10 points.
Up. 15 and a half. 15. He's going to pop father. There we go.
No doubt about it.
So he can tease the Ravens down to 2.5 on the other side of it.
Ravens laying 16 points.
Whatever.
That game is not making our agenda today. The idea that they are laying 16 points is just absolutely outrageous on the road.
It's
but
hilarious.
It shows you how humiliating and how pathetic the Giants are in 2024. All right, guys, let's get to the rest of the card. It's really, really good. I'm working backwards here, Raheem. Sunday Night Football. And we had a video that was posted on the Twitter and the Instagram and all the social media feeds from our Monday show with my guy Raheem, all over the long shot possibilities for the Seattle Seahawks, who, yes, cost me money, and yes, absolutely wiped the floor with Kyler Murray and the Arizona Cardinals last Sunday. Raheem, I'm going right back to the well here. I love Green Bay in this game. I don't like Green Bay. I love Green Bay in this spot. They're getting extra rest. They're more physical. And the home field advantage that we've seen from Seattle in years past, it's not the same home field advantage, that 12th man. It's good. Don't get me wrong. It's still a tremendous, tremendous place to play. I just think Green Bay, after what happened on Thursday night, licking their wounds, I'll trust LaFleur a little bit more than McDonald. I like McDonald a lot. But to me, better team, more physicality. I'm on the more well-rounded Green Bay Packers. I'm laying 2.5 on the road, and I think you're going to be against me here.
Yeah, I think I'm going to get you.
I thought so.
I just think the big reason why is because I think the Seattle defense is just absolutely for real. And since they're week 10 bye, they're top 5 in defensive EPA per play and success rate. And I think that makes it tough for this Packers team, who is very boom or bust. If you're boom or bust and you're playing one of the best defenses in the league, I just don't know how you get past that. So I can't get to this number at all. So I'm probably looking to back Seattle. I haven't grabbed it yet, but I mean that's where my sights are set.
Yeah, I'm on the same side as Dream, JJ, and it's because I've become a believer in this Seahawks defense. What we've seen in terms of the numbers that they're posting now on a weekly basis, and you have to believe two things about this Seattle defense: that the version that we saw earlier in the season when they were decimated by injury was, a work in progress, and also that it was a work in progress because Mike Macdonald's defensive scheme, is complicated and it takes some time to get it. But since that week 10 bye, the disruption rate that they have, and what that is getting to the quarterback quickly and not letting teams set up and run the plays that they want. They're number 1 in pass EPA allowed and top 5 disruption rate. And they have a run D that's top 5 in success rate and EPA per rush. And that's the version of this defense that you have to believe in if you believe that they're going to be capable of going against this Packers team and holding their own. Offensively, inconsistency 100% due to the weakness of the offensive line. but they had the return of Abe Lucas. And the biggest issue with the Seahawks line is pass blocking, but the Packers are not a big time pass rush kind of team. Only 26th in pass rush win rate, 22nd in pressure rate. So Geno in a clean pocket, 9 touchdowns to 2 interceptions from a clean pocket, only 5 touchdowns, 10 picks under pressure. If the Packers can't get home, then I like Geno with his guys, JSN and Metcalf getting down the field against this vulnerable Packer secondary.
You guys in on the Seahawks, no surprise there. I'm telling you, Packers more well-rounded. You're going to see. This is a statement game for the Packers. I expect a monstrous effort. So it's been a united front so far. We got a little disagreement for Packer-Seahawks Sunday night. Now, House, monstrous game for my Dolphins. They survived the Jets. They win in overtime. Now they go to Houston. Houston, I was doing a little homework and research today. They're unbelievable in the first half. They're god-awful in the second half. I couldn't believe how eye-opening those first half, second half trends were for the Houston Texans, who are coming off a bye. They're in very good shape to go and win the AFC South from a desperation sense. This game, that doesn't always work, by the way. The desperate team doesn't always win. I want to throw that out there. But Miami clearly needs the game a lot more. They're a totally different team with Tua at quarterback. We all know that. The line has kind of fluctuated. They've been 2.5s. They've been 3s. It's back to 2.5. I'm going to defer on this. I don't have a great feel on this game. Dolphins getting the points against the Texans. What do we think?
I'm in the same boat as you. I don't really have a great feel for it because we know we can't really trust the Texans. But I don't like what we saw out of the Dolphins secondary last week against the Jets. I mean, Aaron Rodgers picked that secondary apart, and the receiving core for Houston is just formidable. So I don't really want to mess with Assad. I'm looking at the total. I see 46.5. And if you just look at the way that the Dolphins play on the road, they're 5-1 to the under on road games. And the Texans, for whatever weird reason, are under at home. 4-1-1 to the under at home. Houston, 5-2-1 to the under outside the AFC South. Miami 5-3 to the under. There's a bunch of under trends that track along here. And to your point, JJ, for whatever reason, the Texans don't score in the second half. So I might do a tiny play. I think the number is around 0.5 point. If I have to lay 0.5 point for the Texans to win the first half, I might play that because they are, I think, a top 5 team in terms of scoring offense. I think they average around 14 points, top 5 in terms of scoring in the first half, and then just leave them alone. Let that be the bet if I have to do a side, but for sure get something down on the under here.
I like the Texans, and just one thing that we know about the Miami Dolphins is they beat bad teams and they lose the good teams. And the question is this Texans team good?
That's the question, Raheem. Excellent point.
Please tell us.
The record
Please.
at 8-5 would say they're a good team. A lot of the underlying numbers would maybe dispute that. Is that reasonable?
It's very reasonable. The biggest thing for me is I don't trust this Miami Dolphins defense. And House spoke about it earlier, but Aaron Rodgers had his first 300-yard game of the season. 27 of 39, 339 yards, 1 touchdown. And the only reason why they lost that game is because the Jets were 2 of 5 in the red zone. So while we talk all this, like myself and Anthony DeBundo, we've been saying it all year. This Texans team is pretty bad, and we don't trust them in terms of their early down success rate metrics. But when I look at them comparatively speaking, and when you're speaking of them versus the Miami Dolphins, they're the better team. They're second in defensive DVOA, and they're elite against the run and pass. And they lead the NFL in pass rush win rate. So if you consider all of those metrics and you look at the fact that Tua, he tends to struggle with pressure, and we know that Miami Dolphins secondary is going to have a hard time with Nico Collins and Tank Dell, I think this is a matchup where the Texans, off of a bye, they should be able to dominate. And JJ, you remember this. Miami Dolphins were dominant a couple years ago. They go into San Francisco, and San Francisco shut them down. Who was the defensive
DeMeco
coordinator of that team?
Ryans. Uh-huh. DeMeco Ryans.
Now you got DeMeco Ryans off of a bye with multiple weeks to prepare for a lesser version of this Dolphins offense with the same players.
I'm going to tell you 2 keys to watching this game. Teron Armstead, monitor his availability. Miami has to run the ball. They haven't run the ball very well over the last few weeks. They need him to do that. The other guy is Bradley Chubb, who looks like he's gearing up to a return. Dolphins have not gotten after the quarterback. I think they're 29th or 30th in sacks. These are factors that have me completely off this game. But I understand Raheem's point. Texans off a bye. Texans, DeMeco Ryans, defensive mind. And, Miami, hey, we know the deal. Until you beat a good team, it's open to interpretation. My counter, Tua very good in the domes. You're not putting this game in 35-degree weather. You put it inside, which I think gives them a leg up. But stay away from me. Not going near the game. Anyway, this is a game I am going to go near, Raheem. Indianapolis and Denver. Indianapolis getting the points. Indianapolis is coming off a bye. Denver is coming off a bye. That Denver defense got whooped by Jameis Winston 2 weeks ago. Absolutely whooped. I don't think they're as good statistically as the numbers would tell you. I think they've played a very soft schedule. And look, I'm not exactly the leader of the Anthony Richardson fan club. I'm not a believer. I wouldn't want him to be my quarterback long term. But I'm going to look at this game. I'm going to see points. I think this is a tight 3-point game that can go either way. I am taking Andy with the points. I feel good about this. I think this is a close game. Where do we stand on Colts Broncos?
Yeah, JJ, I'm very suspicious of this game. This game feels like a rat to me. I don't understand the 4 points. 3, fine. 2.5, no problem whatsoever. Why is this line 4? What is that based on? We're going to have to ask Raheem about what his market perception is. But my inclination, if I had to play this, would just be to play the Denver money line. Now, this is a playoff game for the Colts. Let there be no doubt. If the Colts don't win this game, they are out. They have no chance at making the playoffs in the AFC. And coming off the bye, Shane Steichen, maybe don't have him all the way up in that Sean Payton class yet, but he's shown a lot of inventive approaches, and we've seen a different Anthony Richardson since his benching, and that's what it was. It was a benching. There has been play call wise some of taking advantage of the explosive capacity of that team. And we know that Denver's defense is susceptible to explosive plays because Jameis exploded all over him. Now, Anthony Richardson's not Jameis.
No, he's not.
And it is the case that, we haven't really seen the Colts establish a dominant run game. And that's the thing that I think would set up Anthony Richardson for some success. But I do understand your skepticism around the Denver defensive numbers because they, to their credit, beat up a bunch of bad teams. The 4 feels too high. I'm just suspicious, Dream. I don't know what to do here.
Yeah, I find this game very tough as well. And I think a big reason why is because Denver, they have a solid defense, and we know that they can slow down the run. I think they're 5th in defensive EPA per play, which means that they can't really rely on Jonathan Taylor as much. And we know that the Denver Broncos, with Levi Wallace out there, and I don't know if he's going to be playing as many snaps as he played against the Cleveland Browns, but if he's out there, the Colts can create some explosive plays. But I also think the Broncos could find some success on offense as well. So the number just feels like the right number at 4. And I don't know if I really want to get involved with this one. This is a must-win game for the Indianapolis Colts. I'm not buying it. The Broncos are really that good. But, I mean, the Colts are just – they're a tough team to back, to be honest with you, because Anthony Richardson, from just a down perspective, he's not that consistent. So I think I probably want to stay away from this one right now.